Welcome back, dear viewers. President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi concluded his 3-day official visit to France, during which an Egyptian-French summit was held. The president also held a number of meetings with high-ranking officials for talks aimed at developing the two countries' strategic ties. The details in the following report.
President Fattah el-Sisi concluded his 3-day official visit to France, which aimed at developing the two countries' strategic relations. During his visit, President el-Sisi met with his French counterpart Emmanuel Macron for talks on bilateral ties and the connection between France and the Muslim world. During the meeting, which took place in Paris on Monday, the two leaders tackled regional and international issues, while also addressing issues of mutual interest. This included counter-terrorism, the Palestinian cause, and the situation in Lebanon, Iran, and Libya. During a press conference, President el-Sisi stressed that coming to a political solution is the only way to achieve stability and security in Libya. Both leaders agreed on the need to dismantle militias in Libya and remove mercenaries from the country. Meanwhile, Macron praised his Egyptian counterpart's support for France against hatred campaign against Paris. During the conference, Macron described President el-Sisi as an important partner in combating terrorism. He noted that Egypt supports human rights and the country has over 55,000 civil society organizations. However, he must still protect 100 million Egyptians from terrorism. The two leaders also confirmed the need to work jointly to promote tolerance, moderation, coexistence among religions, civilizations, and peoples. The president stressed the need to disassociate terrorism from any religion and to stop profaning sacred symbols and beliefs. The president also affirmed the need to fully differentiate between Islam and practices of some extremist groups that take Islam as a cover and exploit the region to justify their crimes. The president also met with French Foreign Minister Jean-Yves Le Drian as part of his visit to Paris. During the talks, el-Sisi affirmed that Egypt is keen on strengthening its strategic partnership with France, which represents an important pillar for maintaining security and stability in the Mediterranean and the Middle East. The French Foreign Minister said his country wants to intensify joint coordination with Egypt regarding Middle East issues. El-Sisi and Le Drian meeting discussed a number of regional files with a special focus on the latest developments in East Mediterranean, Libya and Syria, along with crises in some countries in the region. The head of state also met French Defense Minister Florence Parly, ways of furthering military cooperation within the coming stage. Presidential spokesman Ambassador Bassem Rodi said that President el-Sisi voiced Egypt's keenness to boost military and security cooperation with France in light of growing challenges in the Middle East and Eastern Mediterranean regions. El-Sisi called for bolstering Egypt-France relations in the field of weapon systems and programs. Parly voiced France's aspiration to consolidate military and security cooperation with Egypt, referring to Egypt's pivotal role in achieving regional balance. The president also met with Anne Hidalgo, the mayor of Paris, at headquarters of the mayor of Paris. The meeting tackled Egypt's experience in major national projects over the past years, exploring cooperation opportunities between Paris. On another front, President el-Sisi met with French Economy and Finance Minister Bruno Le Maire. The president reiterated that joint economic cooperation between Paris and Cairo remains a priority. The president noted that Egypt is looking forward to expanding areas of joint cooperation, especially in localizing industry, transferring French technology and expertise to Egypt. For his part, the French minister praised Egypt's economic performance as well as the positive economic indicators which reflect Egypt's successful political, economic and financial strategies. The president held a separate meeting with the Secretary General of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, Angel Gouillet. President Sisi asserted that the country's economic success were supported by the Egyptian people, who directly boosted the country's will to press forward with economic reform program. Also, on Wednesday, Sisi met with head of naval group company Pierre-Eric, praising the joint cooperation with the French company in the field of maritime defense and military vessels production. The president also met with the CEO of Dassault Aviation Company, Eric Trappier. El-Sisi stressed that the region is facing huge challenges, a matter that demands commitment by boosting capabilities and using the latest technology in security and defense. And on the sidelines of his visit to France, President Fattah al-Sisi gave an exclusive interview to the French newspaper Le Figaro. President al-Sisi asserted that Egypt and France are jointly confronting terrorism, noting that the French Parliament is discussing a draft law that targets radicalization and respects principles of the French Republic. The President talked about dangers and threats of Brotherhood terrorist group on the European community and natives, adding that it is on the terrorist list in Egypt. President Sisi demanded holding accountable countries that finance armed terrorist organizations and violate United Nations resolutions.
And on the occasion of the International Anti-Corruption Day, President Fattah al-Sisi stressed the state upholds the rule of law and rejects all forms of corruption, as well as consolidating the values of integrity and transparency, adding that all are equal in front of the law. The president said this is the path that the state took as the main pillar of wise governing since the start of the development process for a better future for Egypt. President Sisi also praised concerned institutions for their efforts to apply the national strategy for combating corruption, urging them to maximize their efforts to protect the nation and Egyptians.
Marking the World Day for Combating Corruption, the Administrative Control Authority held a ceremony that was attended by Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli and a number of ministers. The authority, along with a number of ministries, created a strategy to combat corruption for the year 2020 to the year 2022. On the sidelines of the ceremony, Madbouli witnessed signing a ceremony of a cooperation protocol between the Administrative Control Authority and the National Council for Human Rights on Wednesday. The Prime Minister confirmed that the protocol is aimed at enhancing and supporting safeguard of human rights, as well as transparency and integrity, by following up on the implementation of the national strategies plans.
And on the sidelines of the ceremony to mark the World Day for Combating Corruption, Nile TV's Riham Morsi conducted the following interview with Executive Director of the UN Office on Drugs and Crime, Dr. Gheda Wali, who shed more light on the country's strategy for combating corruption.
It's an absolute pleasure having you here with us for Nile TV. Can you tell us a bit about the idea of the day to combat corruption? Why are we celebrating this today, and what are the UN goals for it?
In 2003, the United Nations announced this day, December 9th, to be the day to celebrate and to recognize the importance of fighting corruption. And it was announced by the UN in 2003 as the Anti-Corruption Day. On this day, countries all over the world celebrate by announcing that we are united against corruption, by speaking about the dangers and the impact of corruption, and by informing the public in general about the efforts of every government in the face of corruption.
The president is adamant on fighting or combating corruption in Egypt. How do you see this work, and what should we expect in the next 5 years when it comes to anti-corruption?
Let me tell you first about this year. 2021 is going to be the anti-corruption year for the UN and for the world. Why? Because the General Assembly, for the first time in history, is going to have a special session in June 2021 to discuss corruption. And then Egypt is going to be the host of the COSP, the Conference of State Parties Against Corruption, where we are going to discuss more than 150, 160 countries are going to get together in Sharm el-Sheikh in December for a few days, for 4 days, to discuss the global efforts to fight corruption, the legislations needed to fight corruption, the international cooperation, to exchange views and exchange knowledge.
And what's the significance of Egypt hosting this event?
Every 2 years, a different country hosts the event. Egypt is a member state, and Egypt has asked for this event to come to Egypt. I think it's a sign of commitment from the Egyptian government to fight corruption. I think Sharm el-Sheikh is going to be a perfect setting to bring the world together to the city of peace and to discuss the impact of corruption on development, on the Sustainable Development Goals, and to discuss with the rest of the world how are the countries going to work together for the people, with the people, to fight corruption. Because fighting corruption is not a state-only responsibility, but there is a role for the private sector, there is a role for non-governmental organizations, and there is a role for government. So I think it's very significant. It sends the world a sign that Egypt is serious, that Egypt is active in fighting corruption.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Egypt marks on Thursday the International Human Rights Day, which coincides with the 72nd anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Marking the occasion, the Foreign Ministry issued a statement in which it highlighted Egypt's role in drafting the Universal Declaration and passing it through the General Assembly. It noted that Egypt continued over the past year to raise awareness of the African and developing countries' national priorities and interests. Those included the right to work and women empowerment. The statement also highlighted Egypt's support for the legitimate rights of the Palestinian people, backing international resolutions against racism and discrimination. This year, Egypt also issued the executive regulations of the law on the work of the civil organizations under which NGOs are established by notifications. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights was adopted by the United Nations General Assembly on the 10th of December 1948. It is a milestone document that proclaims the inalienable rights which everyone is entitled to as human being, regardless of race, color, religion, sex, language, political or other opinion, national or social property, birth or other status.
Egypt has reported 421 new coronavirus infections, bringing the total number of cases to 119,702 people since the outbreak hit the country in mid-February. The Health Ministry also reported 90 new deaths, bringing the total number of fatalities to 6,832. The ministry added that 161 patients were discharged from hospitals, rising the number of those who have recovered to 104,074 people.